Hello, my friends. So today is a fantastic day. We have moved over into YouTube. So from Facebook now to YouTube. What a wonderful way that this world has changed, right? So this video will then get streamed back into the groups, and hopefully we will get everything all set up. So as everything moves forward, we will be able to connect to where we need to go. So welcome to the Workable Witchery workshop, right? There are 2 videos that I do each day. One in the morning is the spell of the day, and 2 is the Rite in the afternoon. This is the Rite in the afternoon. It is a chat on magic, on the occult, on the applications of the occult. So as we go through and as you become a conjurer of your doings, right? As you link into the higher powers and you draw them forth for whatever your purposes might be, it gives us the application and the opportunity by which we can cultivate our relationships with the earth, with the spirits of the earth, and those things which are outside of the purview of normal doings. And so as we go through this, there are elements to this. The work with the master key is what I've been culminating with, the relationship between the mental aspect and the physical experience aspect. So as you go through and you're describing yourself as a magician, as an occultist, as you're trying to identify who it is that you are as an individual, you have a few options available to you. You can use things like the principles of mentalism, which only serve certain persons certain times, right? And those persons are the ones in control of their thoughts. And thought control is important, because if you cannot control your thoughts, you don't know which thoughts are your own, and therefore you don't know which way your spirit guides, your spirit interaction, your familiars, what have you, will lead you down as a result. And so on page 151 of the Master Key by DeLawrence from the 1930s, I believe this one was. Let me double check in the front. This one is the 1941 edition. And so it'd be on page 151. And control your thoughts and you control your world, right? Mr. Dickinson has just finished his breakfast, which he has thoroughly enjoyed. He takes up his newspaper for a quiet 15 minutes per usual. Suddenly, he notes that a client has gone smash. In consequence, the satisfaction brought by his good breakfast vanishes, and he goes to business in an unhappy frame of mind. Robinson has not enjoyed his breakfast. It has not been cooked to his satisfaction. He opens his newspaper morosely and suddenly notes that wheat has gone up 2 points. In consequence, he forgets his badly prepared breakfast and goes to business in a happy frame of mind. A tourist on a long walking tour is delighted with the fine weather he is having. The farmers in districts through which he is touring are in despair because of the long drought, and it affects their crops. What can we learn about the above cases, right? We can learn this. The world for each of us is what we think it. There is a correspondence between the things which we see, hear, touch, taste, and smell, but we look at them from different standpoints, from our standpoint. The world for each of us is our world, and it is exactly what we think it is. Every day, millions of men and women and children look out each morning onto their world. To some, it is a glad world, a beautiful world, a happy world. To others, it is a sorrowful world, an ugly world, and a miserable world. It is such a world because they think it. Now, you can alter the character of your world, or you must always accept and interpret it the same way. You ought not unless it is the right way. For just as you thought makes the world a miserable world to you, so can your thoughts transform it into a happy one. How can this be done, you ask? The reply is by learning to control your thoughts. The fear thought need not always make you afraid. The anger thought need not always make you angry. Control your thoughts and you control your world. It is the object of this world to teach you the secret thought control and mental discipline, right? It is our responsibility as we go through and as we create these things, that thought can turn a brave man into a timid man, a strong man into a weak man, a cheerful man into a sad man, a proud and domineering man into a humble, abject, cringing man. Thought can change the character of respiration, can impede or assist digestion, can alter the quantity of the secretions of the body, and it can induce many diseases and banish many diseases. It can induce nausea, even death itself. Thought can fill us with hope or plunge us into despair. It can fill us with inspiration across all initiative. It can make us preserve against any odds and raise up any difficulties to bar our every step. Your thoughts can make you or unmake you. Your thoughts can do exactly this. Nay, they are doing this. Will you not have a say in the matter? Will you not see to it that only good thoughts, brave thoughts, inspiring thoughts, hopeful thoughts, cheerful thoughts shall form your world? You can do this. Begin from today to encourage such thoughts to dwell within you. Cast out the world every thought that tends to rob you of your peace of mind and your hope of success. You can do this, for this is merely a matter of trying. Right? And so as you go through and as you are cultivating these relationships with your thought and your thought atmosphere, as DeLawrence goes into saying further, right? And in this case, we'll continue that section later. But now we're going to get into the magic and the witchcraft, right? As we say the words, lift the veil so all may see. Let the unspoken now be spoken. Let the unseen now be seen. What is hidden, lost, and thought not be are now brought to the world through me. Right? It's an invocation of power, is a reclamation of yourself, right? And this is a spell from the Codex Arcanum Volume 1, one of the many texts this year that I am rewriting, so that as you go through this, you can think about these things. And there's a spell for all of the people, all of those folks who are going through this kind of despair. They're going through this kind of loss. They're going through this kind of boring interactions with the way the world works, right? You're doing the thing and you're trying to succeed and you're failing at it miserably, right? Well, what if you could change that, right? What if you could put yourself through a gateway? Walk through the gateway of the things that were before, right? And so this is what I call the gate of redemption within the Codex series, right? Like there is some fucked up shit you can go through as an individual, especially as an occultist, right? So it is up to us to determine for ourselves what it is we want to do, why it is we want to do it, and how it is we're going to do it. And so by doing these things, by starting these things up, and by cultivating the relationship with these things, we are opening that gateway, right? And so the spell for that is open the way for those lost in the shadows, open the route by which the spirit will travel. I reach back through the veil, through the shades. I open the way for the lost and the wandering soul. I open the way for the damned and the forgotten. I open the way of the creation of the soul into the image of its source. I open the way and make ready the gate, and I am the keeper of the way as the way is made ready. I open now the door of the soul through flesh and blood, lacking all honor and truth. Be purified, be restored, be purged from that which was before. Right. And that is a conjuration. You're purifying it as you go through these things. So you don't need to hold on to those thoughts that hold you back. You can redeem yourself for the action of being redeemed and going through and doing better so that you don't repeat those past mistakes. It's your opportunity. If you are breathing, you have the means by which you can do this. If you are still breathing and active on this earth, you have the means by which this is a responsibility of yourself to do. And so meditating on the path of redemption in this case, right, is you analyze that which your foundations are. You rehash the origin of your soul, right? That which you go through in the psychic works of the soul, which you touch, it's a form of recapitulation. But in this case, it's not just pulling the energy of those things through into yourself, but you are doing it in a way that allows for you to cultivate the origin of your own soul, right? So in this way, you means to bring the soul out through its redemption, like crossing the gate and descending like the goddess for her mate, right? Like the god for its daughter, right? As Persephone walks into Hades, right? As you go through and you have to relieve yourself of different aspects, right? You have to cross certain thresholds. You have to give up the ring. You have to give up the crown. You have to give up those things. And so by finding yourself cast out of society, cast out of those things where you were doing something wonderful, you were trying for something wonderful, right? You have to go back through and you have to cycle through and you have to create yourself a path of redemption. You pull them out of yourself, the spirit and the psyche, the projection of the means of the way. You open the gates for them. You perform the transformation of the spirit, funerary rite, over the corpse of the dead, that they can open the gate for their demise, right? By the will of the one who would have it performed. So that passage in this book refers to the previous sections of the Codex, or the Grimoire of Arts, if you have that copy, where it has the various funerary rites, the funerary methods, right? So you've got the spells of those things which are pushing you through the outcome, right? Is you have someone who wants to redeem the spirits of the living. They want to purify the dead as they sit before you, right? So you have someone who will speak for the individual during a funerary service, right? So they speak for the dead. They lay hand on the corpse when they say these words, right? They channel that redemption or the blessing that they give to the body as its tether. And so they can elevate it because they choose to, because they understand, right? And so you can make the Conjuration of Release, which follows the next section. As I make sacrifice unto the corruption, that through it take the offering of the souls which are laid in this place of those here in the shadow. I make prayer to the forces within who lay before you, that the way is made open and that they may ascend back to their heights, right? So you have, as a funerary, right, you have laid hands on the corpse, or you have laid hands on the ashes, or you have laid hands on the bones of an individual, where they can resume the task for which they were charged. Because when you incarnate in life, it is that you are designed to be here. You are designed to do a thing, right? We are expressions of the divinity in our unity of purpose, right? We come here to be alive for a thing. We come here to do a task. And so to do a task is to create that task, right? And is to live in either purpose or out of purpose with that thing that we want to do. And so it's up to us to figure out how to make our dreams come true, given the limitations that we have, and how do we create that story in a true way forward, so that those who are developing these things, those who are cultivating the relationship with these things, have that path of interaction, have that path of, this is what we're doing, this is how we're doing it, and so through us, we're doing it. Through us, this is becoming possible, all right? And so that sacrifice of action, those pains, those trials, those tribulations, those are the things that we have to lay bare on the altar, and we have to give up and make sacred those journeys. We have to put ourselves on the altar of life and say, this is the tasks that I have done. These are the great works that I have done in order to achieve my goals. What have I done to elevate the gods, to elevate the community, to elevate myself, to elevate my family, to elevate those around me? You know, you go through and you do all the things that are in accordance with what is to your identity. And even if you fail, you can still put it on the altar of life. You go through and you talk about it like, this is my struggle. This is where I came from. This is where I am. And this is where I'm going. This is what I hope to accomplish. And this is how I hope to accomplish it. Please accept this as my resume, as it were, of action. And so the conjuration continues. Be drawn forth who are bound and punished, that through the creation of this bond be bound to the vessel as I bind the soul of sacrifice. Right? As you bind yourself to the story of the sacrifice that you were talking about. What have you done to make your life sacred? What have you done to make that action sacred? So that way you might have suffered it in one way over here, but you have the application to go so much deeper. You have the divine application to serve those things which are not yourself. And remember, I've said it before, that which is divine is not which is ours, but which is everything, right? It's like we don't own the earth. Humankind in our society might think we do, right? Well, give out parcels, and we'll give out, you pay rent for here, and you pay taxes here, and you owe this person this to work your land for this purpose, or what have you, right? But the animals don't live by that rule. The stones and the trees, they form themselves. The animals carry the seeds because they need to eat, because they need to have the store piles, they need to have those things, or they've eaten the fruit and they shit out the seeds, and then new life comes as a result of the process of their life, right? They are in touch with nature more so than any human ever will be, because we have to have environments that we cultivate specifically to make ours stable. We don't live in a world where we can be just in a cave anymore. We don't live in the world where it's just up to us to live, right? We've created society, we've created order, we've created all of the things which allow us to benefit from the work of others, such as the creation of the house or the apartment or the whatever it is you're living in, right? It could be a cement floor with rope over the top of you with leaves and things like that to keep the water out, right? You could be living in a tent. I've been homeless. I've been out into the wild. It's not suitable for human species, right? It's not something that we were designed to live in. We don't have claws to protect ourselves. We don't have fangs by which we can rend the meat from other things. We have our intelligence, which allows us to outthink those things. We have the way that we construct the world around us, the means to build in better ways than the beaver would a dam in the river. And so when you understand that you have a thing that is up to you to do, and you may have spent years not walking the path accordingly, that's okay. But the fact is that you want to get on that path and you want to walk it in a certain way. You want to walk out your life in full control of who you are for what it is you have to be, right? And so then it goes into the greater conjuration of redemption, right? It's like, I redeem that which was done unto the soul. That it is not without sacrifice, that it is through this deed undone from the dungeon of the ages, that I release from the soul the bonds of damnation, that I plunge myself through the abyss to recall the force of the spell which will free the soul, that it shall be stood upon the purification of the altar of creation, that I call upon the ancient watchtowers of the 12, that I offer up freedom by the bond of the ancients, where the veil parts and the soul is placed upon the seal of restoration. Right? In this case, we've talked about seals before as the control mechanism, right? As you are restoring the soul specifically, right? And so then we get back into the ritual aspect of it. So these, inside of this, is a totem. Inside of this totem is the ingredient that will allow you to bond spirits to an object. In this case, the entire object itself. And say, for example, you use the oil of Metatron, right? It's made up of the letters of Metatron in the planetary associations. And so by putting this with that, you're able to call upon the wisdom of heaven. You are able to call upon the transition from the son of Cain as Irad into the priest Enosh, into the spirit intermediary of the divine Metatron. One individual, 3 changes in life, has gone through first creation as a human, second creation as a priest, third creation as the immortal spirit of heaven, right? And so Metatron is able to become the child of Cain in the heavens, redeeming the murderer father that he had, right? And so these are the things that we have to go back through and think about. And so therefore you have the order of release. What is your method of releasing these things from those seals? What is your method of recall? And so on page 602 and page 603, it says, I stand upon the sphere of creation and I draw it forth from it as the one who stands beyond the veil by the power of the firmament on which he stands. That the second seal I open is the one to free those bound within the microcosmic world, and the orders by the will of the one who calls the 7 gates are closed. Right? And so by saying those words, you're calling out the spirit to bond it to that object. You're creating the means and the pathway through which those things can flow. And so as you get that flow going, as you get that creation going, it continues. By he who stands atop the throne and of the fires of restoration, I make this conjuration unto the fire of the twilight, where the fire of the dawn shall burn forth from within the soul, and the corruption hence, that all things within the revelation of redemption, that no soul may cause this force of corruption past. right? Like this burns off the bullshit from before, right? It is sealed hence by this bond and this mark of redemption, and the mark of damnation is removed from the seal of the gate, which has contains the soul, right? And so when you have the gate array on top of which you place the spirit totem, you can say something like this, and you can bond a new spirit to that thing, right? You could literally conjure up anything that was a murderous spirit, anything that was a dead spirit, anything that was a forgotten thing, and you can restore it. And I release by the covenant of the ancients for the ownership and the possession of soul, that this is bound by the oath to service of the one who frees it, that it is bound and it shall serve henceforth for the release from the damnation and unto the pain of its restoration to the source. You're releasing it. The covenant is a promise. It is the thing that you were swearing as you sacrifice those things which you have done to learn the things that you need to learn in order to be able to help people, to help yourself, and to move forward as you control your world, right? That this force is now freed and returned unto its origin, and it is by that origin a hand unto my workings, as one who is contracted by oath the sole payment unto the service by the seal of redemption. As such, this is so done. Right? So that becomes your conjuration. That becomes your anchorage through this, that through these understandings, you are understanding that the soul that you are conjuring up from the pit, if it's a hellbound soul, if it's a wandering spirit that you've collected from going through a cemetery, or it's a haunted location or what have you, everybody carries with them regrets. Everybody carries with them the thought control that pervades their behavior, right? Well, this is a way to get ahead of that, so that way you can instill within them that the actions that they did before they did this spell, before they did this working, before they came to you for help, they've gone through a change. They've sought to be better. And it is at that seeking that if you can hold to that, you can stay true to that, you have the means by which manifests the greater opportunity of manifestation, the greater opportunity of a path of service, right? And so to bond that promise, you can set a seal of redemption, right? Be conjured now, you forces of the inner courts, by the 7 spheres of their places, and by the 8th gate in the open way. This hour be the gate flung outwards. I conjure thee that the spirit shall be bound by the pact of souls, be observed by these chains, and brought forth to manifest before me. Spirit bound and compelled by the nature of my will to be rendered unto service. That spirit freed and now contained by the bonds of the world's flow, bound before me hence, that thou shalt serve as an offering unto the flow by the source I command you to my service. Your soul is bound to this charge and removed from creation. By the seal upon which you stand, I mark this bond. By the blood of the living flesh which you now inhabit, I bind unto you the seal of your redemption. Be freed upon the plain as you are set, unto the such time as I set you forth. By this seal within your mind you are now bound. By this you will respond to the summons of the ancients, by the covenant which has here been given the oath. So shall it be unto the ending of my will. Right? And so therefore you have been able to condition a talisman, a totem, what have you, right? Now there's other elements to the spell that I'm lacking. There are the preparations of where from the spirit comes. And so doing this in words, to go through the words that are written, to go through the application, right? This is what I mean by going through the gates of redemption. This is what I mean by resurrecting a soul from the spirit world to pull it into form, pull it into an intermediary, and this is a means by which you can restore said grace, right? And so if you're following along with the spell of the day, there was a spell yesterday that was designed specifically to call forth grace within a thing, to purify it and to draw forth your will in attunement with that grace, so that way you have that purity. You have given that state of, it doesn't matter where they came from, it only matters what they're about to do next. And if you can put that into words, into an image, into a ritual, into practice, as practical application, it's the same basic principle that allows you to go from jail to serving the community. Right? You have a prison that should be focused on redeeming the souls within it, to binding all of the darkness that they have committed upon the earth. And if they can prevent that darkness from being spread, if they can be the stop, sealed, and darkness, the infinite wonders of the universe, all of the things that made them who they are, and all of the potential that they have to become something useful, to become something good, to become something of service, can be held in proxy by the things which they committed, by the lessons that they have learned, by the pain which they have endured. And in the same way, they become as the Christ, who must be put to cross for the suffering that his work did, right? It's like, when you look at the same thing, a murderer in jail, a corrupt politician, a shitty person, an abuser, a rapist, a murderer, all of those things, they're not always those things. There was a series of events that led them to become that way. And if they can go through and they can rehash and they can redeem themselves by understanding this is the thing that went wrong, if they can figure out what went wrong and they dedicate themselves to doing right, then they can sacrifice the part of themselves and use that story, use all of the pain that they went through and make it sanctified. They can use that and use that to help others. They can use their darkness to elevate to light. And so that's what the spell recipes are for. That's what this particular passage in the Codex Volume 1 talks about. So that way, if you've got a fallen spirit, or if you're collecting grave dirt from places where there's prisons and paupers and people that have been murdered or been murderers themselves, right? People that have been pirates, people that have been drug dealers, or whatever the corruption is, once their body dies, what becomes a living skin in this case would either be the spirit totems, right? In this case, we're dealing with an intermediary spirit totem. We're dealing with a thing that was created to anchor in a spirit, no matter how dark it is. If it bonds to that through the sacred application of growth and ascension and the commitment to purpose, then we can use something like Metatron's oil, right? We can create a lamp by which we can summon it. We can use that as the base. We put that in the oil lamp, put the wick in there, and then we can add other ingredients to that to make it service for our spell, so that as that spirit comes forward, the spell becomes cast through the aid of the spirit that's becoming redeemed, so that by that purpose and purity of what they were, they now can be sent to task to do something new, right? And this is a spell that I've had in this book since 2000. This is from 2009. This is the first edition of it, right? This is the first creation of these ideas. And it's been the years that I've spent since, right? Now, 13 years since writing this, right? 2009 is when this got published. Before that, it was 9 years of practice, right? Like, this book predates the Grimoire of Arts. This book predates and contains as much of my original work that I could find after I was made homeless, before I got into doing the next levels of my studies, right? This is what it was. This was after probation ended. This was after years of trying to find my way, right? This is what I was doing while I was working in the adult store, while I was trying to come to terms with sexuality again after all of the darkness, right? Coming to, trying to move from doing porn in a negative way to using it in a positive way, to help, to grow, to explore my body, to explore other people's bodies, and to help them explore their own bodies and their own lovers and things like that in positive and uplifting ways, right? Like, this is the thing that set me on that path, where I eventually ended up owning my own store, right? And I sold that store so that I could pursue this and have the opportunity to pursue elevation of others in that same accord, so that all of my dark times, all of my pain and suffering and all of that served a purpose, right? Everything I've done serves a purpose. And it is the control of that purpose, it is the implementation of that purpose, day in, day out, over and over and over again, refining it so that way what I have to do, what I'm offering to do, and how it is I do it produces an effect in the world which I'm pleased with, produces an effect in the world which benefits others, right? It's because we're not alive just because of ourselves. We're alive because of the kindness that other people have shown us. We're alive because somebody has dedicated themselves to the agriculture business and they ship their food product to the store. We have dedicated ourselves to an industry that gives us money and resource, so that way we can pay those people, and then they can continue to do the thing that they love, so that it elevates them in their way. right? And so as we purchase the food, as we consume the food and the energies that they have done, right, we take on the energy flow of that. We live in harmony with other people around us. We live in kindness with our neighbors. We live in a city and we obey the rules, and we don't go to jail. We don't do those things that are crime. We don't do those things which hurt and maliciously attack or defile others, right? We use everything that we do as an elevation. Even if we go through dark times ourselves, this is how that energy carries through. And this is how we can use that energy in a way that cultivates deeper purpose. So it doesn't matter if you were an addict. It doesn't matter if you're disabled. It doesn't matter if you've been to jail. It doesn't matter if you hate. What matters is you change your hate. What matters is you change and never do the things that got you in jail. What matters is that you are no longer in pain or causing pain, right? You are doing the things that will set you in place. And those actions are what would be considered the gate of the seal, right? So what is the gateway that you have to walk through? What are the actions you have to take in order to cross that threshold? Well, it's not just about deciding to cross that threshold. It's actively doing it to elevate the life of others so that it isn't a shithole, right? So that you can find something that you are dedicated to, that through your dedication to it, it helps them and cultivates them. And so that it becomes service. And through that service, many are elevated. So, my friends, today, that is going to be it on the Rite in the Afternoon as we discuss the works of redemption and the application of those sorts of redemptions to the spirit totems that are available using the concepts of things like Metatron in its way. Because even though it was the son of Cain, even though he became Enosh, and then eventually elevated into Metatron, the right hand of God, right? Like it is that linear progression of development of the soul, which we ourselves can aim to, right? You can call on every demon in hell that you want to. You can call on every angel in heaven that you want to. Nothing is outside of your purview. If the demons help you in your time of darkness to get you to a time of stability, great. If the angels help you in your time of light to encourage others to light, great. But if you're using the angels to conjure darkness into people's lives, if you're using demons to further darkness and further evil purpose, you've missed the purpose. It's because those are creatures that are made of those energies, because those energies are identifiable. We can use them to our advantage, and we can apply that to our advantage, and we can use that as an advantage to give other people that advantage. So we are in full control over our thoughts. We are full control over our emotions. And so even if we slide on that path, even if we go through periods where we don't want to be alive, when we don't want to deal with this shit, when we don't, you don't want to go and work the 9-hour shift because it's a bunch of bullshit, right? That shit happens. So make use of the time that you have. And if you're in a way that you're not happy with, you have to be more clever than the situation around you in order to be able to redeem that situation so that it becomes something useful and not something corrosive. It is up to you to figure out how. You're the one in your life. You're the one that has to get you out of that bullshit, right? Spell work is a means by which you can channel energies into your life that will help you, inspire you, that will guide you, that will help you grow, that will help your environment change, all of those things. But you have to understand that you are in control of how that looks like, right? And so this would be the follow-up to those clients of mine that I've had in the past that have refused the manifestation in the forms that it comes, right? They've rejected the way that the world is manifested around them, which is directly in accordance with what they wanted. It just didn't come about how they wanted, and so they get all real pissed off. It's like, no. You ask the spirits for something, they will deliver that thing. The form that it comes in will match what you want, but it won't necessarily match the means by which you think you should get there, unless you set action into place to get you there. You're looking for the battery that will give you the stamina. That's what your spells are going to do. You're looking for those applications of things that let you go deep into a thing so much that you can dedicate it to something bigger, right? That is the act of sanctification. It is serving a much bigger purpose. So it doesn't matter what hells you walk through. It doesn't matter if you're violated on every possible way, that you've had all of your shit lost or stolen or burned up, whatever. Stuff happens. But it's up to you to take that power. It's up to you to claim your power. And so by claiming it, by using it and by working with it and by cultivating it, you have the means by which you can apply these kinds of principles. So even if you have to do that spell on yourself, saying like, I know I was a shitty bitch, right? But I am redeeming myself because these are the things that I was. This is the thing that I'm going to do with it. This is the way that I'm going to purify others with it. This is the way I'm going to purify myself. So that way these things are not repeatable. So that these things move better, forward, stronger, right? And so that the line of power flows through in a congruent way so that you and the divine are as one. So, my friends, many blessings, and I will see you tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. for the for the spell of the day. 10 a.m. Tomorrow at 2 will be the Rite in the afternoon. I will see you then, my friends. Stay safe, and thank you for being. I appreciate you.